Next up, we have Jeff Rupert. He is the Director of Office of Wildland Fire for the Department of Interior. Prior to being selected as OWF Director in January 2018, Jeff had a 25-year career working for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service as the National Wildlife Refuge Manager, and more recently in headquarters as the Refuge Systems Chief of Natural Resources.
Thanks, Sean. Good morning. Very much appreciate it. I want to thank, first of all, ITC. The symposium has been remarkable. I was sort of joking earlier when I walked in Tuesday morning, came around the corner, and massive room full of people. It was really quite remarkable. So I've really enjoyed the week and really appreciate the opportunity to be a part of it. Also, for sure, want to thank the Eastern Band of Cherokees for their generous hosting of this, and have really enjoyed seeing and learning more about this awesome place. So thanks. And I think I'm going to try to be as efficient as I can, which isn't always my strong suit, and really want to just hit on a few items. Cody introduced a couple of them. Also going back to Tuesday, some of the presentation and discussion on workforce reform, pay increase, hit on that a little bit, budget in general, and then also the common theme of talking about the work of that commission, I think, is really important. But I really want to start with partnership, and I just want to take the opportunity in front of a room full of people to acknowledge and appreciate the partnership with ITC. For me, in this job, and I'll talk just a little bit about OWF and really sort of like what we are and why we show up in these discussions. But the partnership with ITC has been, from my perspective, wonderful. I think the foundation of a good partnership, right, is open, transparent, engagement and relationship. And the folks I work with most frequently in ITC, whether that's Cody or Jim Durgala, I don't know if Jim's in here yet, Bill Tripp, Phil Rigdon's often in the room. I have no doubt that that open and transparent engagement feels awfully present to me. My ITC colleagues are very consistently and persistently, I think, challenging and encouraging me and others in Interior to, do more faster. And I think that is sage advice, and I appreciate that partnership. So thank you. So maybe just briefly a little bit about OWF, just to kind of orient everyone as Aaron and Caleb come up and talk about BIA. So in the Department of the Interior, the Office of Wildland Fire sits at the, really that department level, organized under the Secretary of the Interior. Obviously, we have wonderful support right now from the Secretary. Deb Holland has been a remarkably impactful leader in Interior. There has not been a single issue that where we've needed or asked for support for Wildland Fire, whether it's BIA tribal support or other support where she hasn't stepped right in and offered that support. So it's been wonderful. So we're organized in her office. Every year, the budget, the annual appropriation, the annual budget in the Office of Wildland Fire, we coordinate with the Interior bureaus, including BIA, to build that budget. And so all of the funding that we ask for, as well as sort of the authority to do things and to identify priorities and make decisions in terms of where we spend and invest dollars, all of that coordination is really sort of facilitated in OWF, as well as a lot of like department level policy development as we really look to where we can deliver Wildland Fire activity and operations, whether it's pre-fire risk reduction, preparedness, prevention, whether it's fire suppression, post-fire recovery, rehabilitation, to really try to deliver that as efficiently, as effectively, and as consistently as we can. And so that really has been the role of OWF, to help with that coordination across the bureaus of Interior. So I thought I'd like to maybe talk a little bit about priority and opportunity. I think Cody and others have hit on this over the course of the week for sure, and just really want to reinforce it from my perspective. So I've been in the job since 2018. Prior to that, spent quite a lot of years with Fish and Wildlife Service in the headquarters office, and for Fish and Wildlife Service, was responsible for a lot of the national level wildland fire management as well, so worked in a lot of the same communities. My point there is that I've had the opportunity to experience sort of that wildland fire, kind of like, you know, the engagement and all of the coordination across, you know, a really broad interagency community that not only includes that federal family, so the Interior bureaus, but also states, tribes, local partners as well in many places. So that, all of that community coordination, all that community engagement, there's no doubt that right now we're in a sort of a place in time where there is clear opportunity for us to make progress on wildfire impacts, trying to reduce that risk before fires hit, trying to do a better job of responding to those fires, more effective, more efficient, and also recovering after those big fires. You know, we're on this trajectory of bigger, more intense mega fires, not only across the country, across the continent, but quite frankly, across the world. We know we're going to stay on that trend, and, you know, for, I think, you know, what are very obvious reasons, that's driving a lot of attention to all of our work and all of our activities. And that attention, I think, creates this opportunity for us to really continue to find additional support. I have commissioned sort of the last on my list, but I'll just to sort of reinforce and try to connect dots. You know, Cody talked about the commission. He talked about the recommendations in the commission that connect to sort of tribal needs, tribal opportunities, tribal values. You know, those are present. From my perspective, I think tribes were very well represented in the commission sort of discussions, and you know, those needs were identified and included. And to Cody's point, you know, there's this remarkable consensus that exists right now on this really comprehensive report and recommendations, and you know, really trying to take advantage of that consensus, along with all of the attention that wildfire is getting right now, wildland fire is getting right now, and then how do we translate that into not only short-term but midterm and long-term support? How do we build durable initiatives and programs and frameworks moving forward so that not only can we see the benefit of that attention and that support, you know, this year, next year, the year after, but a decade from now. And I do think that opportunity is in front of us all for sure. And the commission report is, I think, can be a really important part of that, real opportunity there. So I just want to jump a little bit into the budget, talk a little bit about budget and Interior. Again, back to this sort of theme of opportunity and support, partnership. We have been on a very positive budget trajectory in Interior. So we've seen budget increases persistently for the last 6 or 7 years. On top of that, we've also seen all of the support that came through the Infrastructure and Investment Jobs Act, that bipartisan infrastructure law. In Interior, that was about an additional $1.5 billion over 5 years. That support came with lots of sort of mandate and expectation, but generally focused support in a lot of the areas that we've talked about for many years that we need additional support. So that's been on top of this general sort of positive budget trend we've been on. 24 has been a bit of a more challenging budget year. We are still on an increasing trend. It's just a much flatter increase this year. And essentially the way 24 has worked out for Interior, so this means it's how, BIA is also sort of affected, it's ended up essentially being a really flat budget, which means that, we can sustain all of the work that we're doing, and that, as we look forward to 25, 26 and beyond, we have to make that adjustment to, trying to build that consistent growth back, coming out of this essentially this flat year. There are a few points, though, that I think are important to keep in mind around the 24 budget, especially for folks that have a real stake and sort of role and a voice in all of these engagements around, this sort of national support. 24, we went through a series of continuing resolutions. So Congress, which, is not really all that uncommon at this point, went through a whole series of sort of ongoing negotiation trying to hammer out a final budget appropriation deal for this year. So we actually went through 4 continuing resolutions. I think, one of the important things to recognize in all 4 of those continuing resolutions is that Wildland Fire Management, so this included Interior, and BIA, as well as all of our partners that have a connection to that funding, as well as the Forest Service. The appropriators recognized, and Congress recognized, our need and priorities that focus on firefighter pay support. And so even under the continuing resolution, all 4 of them, we saw specific sort of like support around that firefighter pay. They continued to provide us the authority to make those payments, as well as access to the funding to support those payments. And then as we rolled into the full appropriation for 24, again, we continued to receive that support for making the payments, as well as funds to provide the payments. And importantly, to be clear, and I know on Tuesday the subject of tribal firefighter pay came up. To be clear, that does include, in Interior, that does include tribal firefighter pay. Over the last 2 years, as we worked through implementing that bipartisan infrastructure law, we worked through issues that were tied to that law around authority to make payments. And we were able to identify a process to make additional tribal firefighter pay payments in partnership with BIA with partner tribes. So that's in place. The other, I think, real progress we've made over those 2 years is now when we develop our annual budget in Interior for Wildland Fire, it does include tribal firefighter pay. And so when we are identifying federal firefighter pay increases or workforce reform needs, in every case right now, we are equally identifying tribal needs as we understand them and as we receive them. So I think, we're in a good spot. There's a lot of work to do. I think we still need to, we've made progress you know, putting in place, you know, deliberate engagements to identify what that need is. And, you know, I'm certain we need to continue to refine and improve that process, but we do, from my perspective, have a really solid foundation built to carry that forward now. And I'm really proud of that work. And again, there's a partnership piece for sure there with ITC. ITC was a major voice in us making progress over the last couple of years on this topic. So that's a little bit about 24 and sort of moving forward. I also just wanted to really quickly put in a plug. In addition to firefighter pay, so we have a focus on that, there's a direct connection to the commission report that you've heard so much about this week. It highlights and recommends firefighter pay increases as well. So we're you know, reinforcing that connection, continuing to build off of those recommendations. We have also included in our budget proposals and in the legislative proposals that we've made for sort of permanent firefighter workforce reform, we've also included housing. We've yet, from my perspective, to identify like a 100% solution to how we deal with the housing, you know, sort of crisis that we're a part of in Wildland Fire, but we have included increased requests for increased support for housing through a lens of not only building more housing, making more housing available, but also have very much left the door open to trying to figure out how we could potentially step into, you know, some kind of housing support program, whether that's, you know, some kind of assistant payments or whatever the case may be. We're very, very actively working to try to continue to identify, you know, strategic ways to help address that need. Also, in that workforce reform, we've included a focus on support for health and wellness, including mental health support, which is really important work in Wildland Fire. I think, you know, folks are generally aware of that, the need to develop those programs and that support. And then finally, we have continued with all of the workforce reform, increasing capacity. So again, this includes how we're interacting with our partners and with tribes, that increasing capacity continues to be a part of how we're describing workforce reform. So if we want to have, you know, if we want to address health and wellness, work-life balance for firefighters, we have got to continue to increase capacity to address all of the resource needs that we have when we've got a busy fire year going on, as well as we're increasing all of that sort of need and demand to do pre-fire risk reduction work and post-fire recovery work. So capacity increase is very much a part of that. Okay, I need to keep going. So that's a little bit about sort of where we're at with the budget. Again, trying to make those connections with the commission. Everything that I just hit on, it's in that report. It's included in recommendations in that report. So again, it just reinforces the opportunity that I think we have as, you know, a broad collaborative partnership with folks working in this wildland fire space to really take advantage of that commission report and all those recommendations as a foundation for how we talk about this, and all of the consensus that's included in there that, look, these are the solutions, these are the steps we need to take to help reduce the impact to all of our communities and, you know, our nation and the country from wildfire. So again, just continually trying to make those connections. The last thing I wanted to talk just a little bit about was about cultural burning. Again, a strong tie to the commission report. From my perspective, kind of back again to that overarching theme of priority and opportunity. One of the common themes in that commission report is to really reduce risk and to reduce the impact, mitigate the impact of, you know, catastrophic mega fire on people and communities, you know, across the country. We must be more proactively interacting with beneficial fire, including things like prescribed fire. And this is the real, I think, step forward in things like cultural burning. Interior, for sure, is absolutely supportive and interested and engaged in the cultural burning discussion. I think with our, you know, BIA partners in Interior, we've got great representation promoting, advocating for cultural burning. I think as we move forward and continue to better and better define what that is, its importance, its value, and I realize cultural burning and prescribed fire are not the same thing, but where we can leverage all of that focus on sort of reducing risk, where there is overlap between cultural burning and prescribed fire, I think there's just great opportunity, you know, to point that out. And again, continue to sort of start to really make that progress and gain ground on cultural burning, you know, whatever sort of form it takes across the country and across tribes. So I think I'll stop there so everybody else has time. I'm around for the rest of the symposium, so thanks everyone.
Thank you, Jeff, for your update from OWF.